Well, Barbie and Kendra are back, so let's talk to Charlie Band all about it. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and if you've been watching our content on YouTube or listening to our podcast, you know all about Full Moon Entertainment and Charlie Band. And you must know about Corona Zombies, which is, to me, one of the best films of 2020. I think technically it could be eligible for Oscars. Well, let's talk to Charlie Band. Let's talk to Charlie Band about the continuing series of the Barbie and Kendra series, so to speak. There's a new film and there's all sorts of new movies that are coming up on the Full Moon Entertainment app, which we were just talking about before we started this. I mean, it's amazing to me, Charlie. I mean, you're already, if people know you from Full Moon and all the films you've done in the past, the Puppet Master series, so many other great ones. They know how prolific you and your company are. But the fact that you have remained productive, you've done more during this pandemic than any filmmaker that I know.
Well, okay. Yeah, because how can you sit still? So we invented this Barbie and Kendra thing to keep busy as we're prepping a big slate of films that actually begin shooting next month. I can't tell you too much about that, but Barbie and Kendra worked in that we were able to come up with this device where these dissy chicks trying to digest and understand what this pandemic is all about wind up in each sort of episode, tuning into, in the first case, Corona Zombies, a low-rent horror network, where they watch a movie that is actually Hell of the Living Dead, cut down, revoiced, new track, current funny dialogue. And then in the second one, which is Barbie and Kendra Save the Tiger King, they find the BPN, which is it's a low-rent nature channel. BPN means Big Pussy Network. Yes, it does. And in the case of Tiger King, they find on that network the origin story of Joe Exotic. And we were very lucky not only to find a movie from the 60s called Terror in the Jungle, which we licensed and cut down, that had as its centerpiece this young blonde kid, 5 years old, who clutches a tiger, a stuffed tiger, through the whole show of misadventures and natives and the jungle and Jeopardy. And we got Leslie Jordan, if you know who he is. This amazing actor, Emmy Award winning guy. He's got 6 million people following him on Instagram. He did the voice of little Joe Exotic, and he's just cussing and saying crazy shit. So that was the second Barbie and Kendra. And the third one just came out last Friday, equally funny and irreverent and bizarre. In this case, they find a low-rent conspiracy network called PUN, Probe U Network. And on the Probe U Network, again, there's clips and funny stuff that's real about flat earthers and people wearing tinfoil hats and thinking that will protect their brains. But again, they find a movie on that network. And what we did to create this movie is it's a combination of a movie I made years ago called Daytime Ended. There's some scenes from Daytime Ended. And then again, a movie from the 60s called Space Thing, which is, again, super low rent material. We cut it together, all maybe 25, 30 minutes between both movies, and of course, revoiced everything. We got some celebrity voices in there that the fans will have to recognize. So once again, the girls are watching this show. And what's cool about these three shows that we did, these three movies, is that they required 1 day each of principal photography and green screen with the girls, with Barbie and Kendra, Cody and Robin Sidney. And then the rest of it is all done in our respective homes. The voice actors, the editing, the music, all that stuff. So we were able to do these three shows over the last 6-7 months. And not that things are getting any better with COVID, but we've figured out a way to be very careful, protective, one location shoots, and we're going to get into some more ambitious filmmaking. And the plan, which sounds insane, is to make 2 movies a month starting in January. And that's crazy. But we're going back to our roots, a lot of sequels and movies inspired by films I've been making for many, many years.
Well, this series, the Barbie and Kendra series, is hysterical. We did that watch party, and unfortunately, you weren't able to be there. We did a watch party for Corona Zombies, and the audience that was watching along with us loved the film. that, you know, it was just so fun. It
Yeah.
really is. These are like definitely like late night kind of stoner, a little influenced by, say, What's Up, Tiger Lily,
Right.
or maybe more recently Mystery Science Theater
Right.
3000. That sort of like commentary, sort of mixing that in, but also like the thing that I think that people really respond to is the timeliness of it. I
Right.
mean, you know, that's what we usually depend on TV shows like Saturday Night Live, right? It's like this
Right.
is relevant comedy, something that happened
Yeah.
during the week, and your films, the way you're able to produce them, you make them like so. I mean, I gotta remember first seeing Corona Zombies in March, and it
Right.
was so like dead on the nose with all the humor and jokes about toilet paper and just like all that stuff. I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but it's the kind of thing that like I feel like we do need to be entertained and laugh during this time. And I don't know that like what I love about you is that you figured out how to keep all of this like timely and relevant at a time when people are even deciding, do we set this movie during the pandemic, before,
Right.
after? Like, is it a normal world? And you're just like leaning like right into it.
Well, you know, I think Corona Zombies is actually very funny. Maybe it was less funny to some people in March because people were beginning to just, you know, I mean, stay home and you know, look, the movie is not a comedy about people dying. It's not about Corona Zombies eating people up. I mean, it's actually in its own way pretty clever and timely. But I understand how back then, you know, we got some people, some reviews said, "Oh my God, this thing is the funniest thing, just what the doctor ordered." Other people, other reviewers said, "You are a dick. How can you be so insensitive making this movie at a time when people are dying?" Well, you know, we do make exploitation movies, and that was very timely. And it is the first movie made about the corona or the COVID-19, you know, pandemic. So no matter what happens in 3-4 years, I think I said this before, maybe even on your show, no matter what happens, I mean, COVID will be over. You know, next year there'll be a point where, you know, it will be a memory, and hopefully we'll be smarter because of it. And then, of course, there will be big, expensive, serious movies made. You know, major studio films, Meryl Streep crying her eyes out, whatever it is. We'll have those movies, but Corona Zombies will always have the distinction of being the first Corona, COVID, exploitation, whatever you want to call it, movie ever made on planet Earth.
Well, I love that. And it's on the Full Moon Entertainment app,
Yeah.
which is, I think we were talking like just before we started recording, that I feel like in a way I'm sort of burned out on Netflix, right? Like it's just, and I've discovered like some of these smaller streaming services. I mean, literally for the monthly charge, which you would pay for one movie, right? On like iTunes or Apple, whatever, like you get access to all like 1,000 titles from the Full Moon library and other libraries that you brought on board, which I feel like is such a value. So I've since, after discovering, I've been hopping around on some of the smaller services, and it's incredible what you get for your money.
Well, you know, we're trying to make it the exploitation film destination. You know, Shudder is by far the #1 horror channel. And, you know, again, it's funded by AMC. They have a lot of money, and it's pretty specifically a horror network, which is cool. I like us to be more looked on as an exploitation channel where, yeah, we've got horror, sci-fi, fantasy. We got 100-odd Blue Underground movies. We got Euro trash. We got Euro cult. We have, you know, I don't know how many. I'm not sure if there's 1,000, but it takes you a lot of hours to go through the library. And we put up 2-3 movies every single week. And we're expanding. Next year should be terrific. I hope people support. It's fullmoonfeatures.com, just in case someone's wondering. Fullmoonfeatures.com. It's an app, and you can watch it on your Apple TV, Roku, Xbox, you know, iPhone. But we also have our channel up on Amazon. You just go to Amazon. It's the add-on subscription area, and you can find Full Moon Features. And Amazon has been great to us. There's a huge amount of people are on, obviously 150, 60 million people. The only difference is some movies, very few, we can't put on our Amazon channel because they're a little too edgy. And so whereas Full Moon Features, it has everything. We put everything on there, you know, within reason. So it's a small difference, but we're just lucky to be one of the first streaming sites on Amazon. We're now 4 years old on Amazon, and our own streaming site, our app, its predecessor, Full Moon Streaming, which sort of turned into Full Moon Features. We were there 6 months after Netflix. So it's been like, I think, 7 years or something. So we were there from day one. And hopefully people support the few independent streaming channels because, I love a lot of the stuff on Netflix and Hulu and Disney, but you're not going to find the sort of exploitation fare that you used to find in the video store in the 80s and 90s on Netflix, and not that they're not making some great stuff. It's just, their deal is, low budget, 3 to 5 million, getting in there is not easy. You got many layers of executives who, like a studio, have to touch and feel and have their input in your project. And good shows get made for sure in that sort of studio matrix. But what independents were able to do back in the good old days of direct-to-video is make really edgy, clever movies that are now looked on as, cult classics, movies made in the 80s and the early 90s, movies that are now being remade. Those movies couldn't be made in a Netflix-only world or a Hulu-only world. So it's our smaller streaming site, I should say, that welcomes, also, look, we do make our own movies. It doesn't mean that if someone comes knocking on the door and says, hey, I made this really cool film, can you guys put it up? We'd like to. But we haven't quite worked that mechanism out yet. But we are going to be involved with 10 different filmmakers next year, making a lot of new films. And, hopefully we'll just gain more subscribers. I mean, that's the name of the game. It's not one property that makes the difference. It's bringing in enough cool things that people go, for $6 or $6.99 a month. It's a lot less if you subscribe for a year. It's like $5. I really want to watch what is going on at Full Moon. That's sort of where we hope this thing grows.
And I do know that you have a deal. If you sign up for a year, you get like this package, right?
Well, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to do anything we can to bring people on board. So if you sign up for a year, which I think is $59.95 for a year, we're giving you a 12 Blu-ray box set of the entire Puppet Master series. So that box set is $120 in value. And it costs us close to the hard we're basically trading dollars, but the cool thing is someone gets this awesome 12 Blu-ray box set of all the Puppet Master films, and they get a whole free year of, however you look at it, of Full Moon Features. And then you're sort of in our video store, and you can check out all the cool movies and all the things that we're working on.
Well, Charlie, you've been so productive. A lot of people said at the beginning of the pandemic, were like, if you don't emerge from this having written a novel or accomplished something, or gotten yourself in physical shape, that's not going to happen for me. But
yeah, you're looking very healthy.
We should see that. I put on some pandemic, some lockdown weight that I got rid of. But what is your advice to filmmakers that are going through this now and trying to come up with ways to be productive? I know that Hollywood, my friends who work on Hollywood productions, the rules and the steps and things you have to go through to stay in production, it's added this whole other cost and made it like really difficult for studios, and they have money. How do you skirt around that, also be safe and continue to be productive and make films?
Oh, that requires another 20 minutes. Easy. The answer is not a quick one, but look, even the big studios are shape shifting and thinking about how to, where do they go after COVID? I mean, let's face it, movie theaters are either closing, and terrible financial trouble. The model that we know now, or that we knew before COVID, I think is gone forever. When people get used, when habits change, it's hard to go back to the way things were, especially if you find that there are benefits from not going out to a movie theater. Now, I love going to the movies, but only when it's a great movie. And sometimes you go and you think, wow, that thing sucked. And, you wind up spending money because you bring friends and you go out, and food and parking. And now that we're in this habit of being able to sit home and watch really great entertainment, I would say, I don't want to say for free, but far less expensive than just one family going out to the movie theater. I think it's changed people's perspective. Also, it's no longer, we're not sitting at home watching a little square box. I mean, for a few $100s, you get a big ass flat screen TV. you're hooked into whatever you like, whatever streaming service you like. People are watching high quality HD programming at home for virtually nothing. So yeah, I mean, when Bond finally comes out and a few big tentpole movies, and people will want to go to the movies for the experience. But I think a lot of mid-range and smaller movies aren't going to get made. Studios are rethinking things. I know that for a fact. And that has sort of made our world a better world. So how do we put more value on the screen and bring in awesome filmmakers? And, like anything else, it does boil down to some ingenuity and money. And unlike the old video days where you could ship a film, and if it really caught on, and I made a number of movies that did extremely well in the video store, you could make a whole bunch of money. That doesn't exist in streaming. All you can hope is you put something really great on your channel and people go, hey, you got to check this out. It's on the Full Moon channel. And then some more people subscribe. So in a way, I always feel like I'm publishing a magazine, and the more subscribers, the better. I can get better people to write the articles. I can go to Stephen King and say, dude, write a cool article. And then people will know that Stephen King's got an exclusive article in my magazine. And I mean, that's sort of the business model now. But I'm talking about from someone who is, the owner of this streaming site or these streaming sites. And I'm only lucky enough to be the owner because I kept most of my movies I've made over 40 years. So I started with a library of films. I don't own everyone. Some of the movies went elsewhere. I made some movies in the 80s, the Empire movies. MGM owns those. I made a few movies in the 70s. The one that's most well known, Metal Storm, is owned by Universal. But Barbie and Kendra, Storm Area 51 is my 339th movie because I number every movie. It seems like crazy. And other than the 30 odd movies that MGM owns that I made in the 80s, the Empire films, I do own the rest of those films. So I was able to, with my movies and then acquiring other movies years ago, start this streaming channel. So as far as filmmakers, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is you can make movies incredibly inexpensively today. If you have some technical expertise and the right camera. Back in the day, when I first started making movies, I was at the tail end of, the theatrical release pattern. I was sort of following Roger Corman. So in my early years, you had to shoot on 35, heavy lifting, lots of people, lots of light, expensive lab. You couldn't make a movie cheaply. I mean, unless someone was just, you had a friend who said, I'm going to pay for everything. It cost 50, 60 grand back in the 70s and probably the 60s to make a movie. And that's without paying people. That's just hard costs, negative, lab, rentals. These are costs that no longer exist. So in a way, filmmakers today, and when I say filmmakers, it seems like an antiquated way to talk about it. People who want to make a show, a program, a 5-minute video, whatever it is, you can make these programs inexpensively. And then how you exhibit them, how you get them out there, there's a myriad of ways. But these ways, unfortunately, this is the good, the bad, and the ugly part, is there's no real money in any of these venues. They call it digital dimes. So I could pluck any movie out of my channel and look at the views and do the math and go, wow, this movie made $80. It's the weight of 1,000 or whatever, hundreds of movies are on the channel. And sometimes there's a spike. Whereas, again, going back to the direct-to-video days, you would release a movie on VHS or later on DVD. If it did well, Blockbuster Hollywood Video, you'd ship 40, 50,000 units. You'd invoice them for $300,000. Maybe you spent $200,000 on your movie. You made money, then you made your next movie. That model is gone. And there's nothing really to replace it yet. But, a lot of people make shows, whatever they're conjuring up, also to get noticed so that they can then get a gig and get their film financed by a major cable network or an independent. And hopefully there'll be a point in 3 to 5 years where Full Moon streaming, or I should say Full Moon features, will have enough subscribers where we can fund, reasonably budgeted, low budget movies. Someone comes in, Chris, you come and say, I got this crazy idea and here's the budget and it's 180 grand. And we go, that could work for our thing, and we fund it. Now we can't do that on the subscriber base we have now.
Right.
We could fund, maybe dinner, but sure. We don't have the dollars yet because we don't have the subscribers yet. So, yeah, just more subscribers, the better. Then we can become more of the video store we're becoming. And for all exploitation fair, I don't want to just be the horror film guy. And I think Barbie and Kendra kind of proves that, because it's a wacky, I don't know what they are, sci-fi, fantasy, comedy. But in the lineup coming up for next year, we have a really wide range of films. We've got Harlequin romance type movies, erotic thrillers, of course, sci-fi, fantasy, horror. We got a whole bunch of exploitation fare that hopefully will, people will enjoy.
Well, I think it's a golden age for the movie being made for under $100,000.
Yes,
that's kind of what it is. But I think that your Hollywood, you were right earlier. You said these big movies. I don't know, like I'll go to the theater to see the big movies, but I think that the business model, if they're not going to be able to have theaters at full capacity until maybe 2022, I don't know that there's really a pathway. When are we going to see $1 billion at the box office? Maybe not for a couple of years. It's just not going to happen.
Well, people do like going out, but it won't be the way it was. And again, the habits have changed. We're comfortable at home. We have our big screen. I was the first guy. I shouldn't say the first guy. I was amongst the first to buy the first flat screen TV back. I don't know when the hell it was, 20 odd years ago, maybe longer. I don't even remember, 25. It was literally, I'm embarrassed to say how much I spent. This is back when I had a lot of money, then I had no money. Now things are getting a little better. But I'll tell you, to give you the perspective, it was a $22,000 flat screen TV. It was not huge, but it was the first one that you could hang like a painting on your wall. You didn't need the big, because before that I had the big tube, the thing, the box. Those boxes were like small bathrooms. They were so freaking big.
Yeah.
So I hung this thing on my wall, and I would say it was medium size. And one of my sons recently bought a flat screen for his apartment, which was exactly the same size, and it cost him $220. So,
Costco.
Yeah, wherever he bought it, I'm just saying 200. It was the same. It looked better too. Mine wasn't HD. So, now that people can do that and they can fill up a wall if they want for sports, for whatever they're into, it's going to be hard to get those people to go out and spend. I mean, what does a family of 4 have to spend to go to a first run movie, a Disney movie? I mean, Disney's proving right now they can release. I mean, have you seen The Mandalorian? That's actually a really cool show. It's a lot of fun, so they're proving, and this is to the detriment, unfortunately, of theater owners and theaters, that there are a lot of cool shows that people will enjoy at home, and they don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money and then never see it again unless they rent it again or buy it later. So I think habits are changing. And again, I'm happy for our streaming world, because that's what we do. I mean, we'll never release a movie theatrically again. I mean, there's a couple of big deals brewing where a few of my movies may be remade as big studio tentpole films, but would be great, but it's not what my business is. My business is hopefully continuing to improve movies that I want to see get made, that are edgy, that are fun, that are different, that are not copycat movies. I mean, no matter what you may say about Barbie and Kendra, there's not 12 other Barbie and Kendras. I mean, for whatever it's worth, these are unique little shows, and it's just one, slice of the pie. So, but again, this all takes subscribers. People got to shell out their $6, $7 a month. They got to know what kind of bargain that is. Back in the video days, if you were a voracious consumer of movies and you rented a couple movies, 10 a month. A week. I mean, our family was crazy. We would not return them on time, so we owe Blockbuster like $1 million. But we would probably rent 10 or 12 movies a week. And that was probably $50, $60. That was I'm sure we were spending a few $100s a month at Blockbuster Video before that all ended. So for $6.99, you get, or less, you get the wealth of 1,000 movies with new movies every week.
Well, Charlie Band, thank you so much for the podcast. You got to come back when the next Barbie and Kendra adventure comes out. Soon.
I will. Very briefly, to sum it up, Barbie and Kendra relies on a worldwide event that's really cool that we can sort of exploit. Otherwise, it's not just Barbie and Kendra go shopping. It's got to be something big enough. But we just announced our first of our 18 movies next year, which is going to be to some degree an homage to Stuart Gordon. It's a Lovecraft-inspired show called Miskatonic You the Resonator. And we'll be shooting that literally in a matter of weeks. And that's the first of a whole slew of cool movies that, of course, will all premiere on our streaming site.
Can I pitch you the next Barbie and Kendra?
Yes, please.
It's called Barbie and Kendra Vote, and the whole movie is them counting ballots. And
I've never check this out. I know I'm killing the timeline.
That's okay.
I've never done anything political ever. I don't want to mix that into Full Moon. I hate to turn down your project, but no voting, none of that. Let's just hope we pass that and we can have fun and not get so immersed in the silliness. So no, we got to wait for the next big thing. Barbie and Kendra, question mark.
Well, I think them counting the ballots would be entertaining. It would be, and it could be non-political and goof on all of that. Nope. I'm just glad all that stuff's behind us, and we can be entertained by everything on Full Moon. Charlie, thank you for talking to us on the Film Threat podcast.
Thank you.
Last, you got to come back again.
I'm here. We'll be a big year next year, no matter what.
All right. Take care.
Take care. See you later. Bye.